How's it going, everyone? It's me, the Lone Vault Wanderer, here with another Fallout discussion video. Before we get started, I want to mention a couple of things. One, if you haven't subscribed to my new channel, Collab Mode, it's essentially a YouTube channel where a bunch of different YouTubers are collaborating together. Please subscribe. I'll link to the channel in the description below. Also, as well, I've been streaming a lot more on Twitch lately. Actually, for several months, I've been streaming pretty much every weekend when I can. And if you haven't followed me there and signed on for notifications to know when I go live, I'll also link my Twitch in the description below, so please check those two out. But anyways, let's go back to the topic of this video. The idea for this video came from a video that I did back in April of this year, which was titled Fallout Won't Go Back to Obsidian, so how about? Essentially, in that video, I talk about this particular tweet by Chris Avallone back in April of 2016, where he said that I don't think Fallout will ever go beyond Bethesda again, and certainly not to Obsidian. If you want to check that video out, I'll also link that in the description below too. But I really want to focus on this tweet and not talk about just the general fact that it's very unlikely for Obsidian to ever work on Fallout again, but I want to analyze why. Like, why would Bethesda be making this conscious decision to never give the Fallout IP back to Obsidian, let alone to any other developer that's outside of the Bethesda family? Because that's exactly what Chris Avallone said. He said, I don't think it'll ever go beyond Bethesda, but certainly not to Obsidian. Now, Chris Avallone in the past has shared those reasons as to why he doesn't believe Obsidian in particular is certainly never going to get the chance to work on Fallout again, but those are very specific to Obsidian, and I'm not going to reiterate his opinions on that. It has to do with the management of the company and all those kinds of things. But what I want to talk about is just generally, right? Why wouldn't Bethesda give the Fallout IP to a third party like Obsidian or any other company? Why would it be the case that from here on out, Bethesda only wants its in-house developers to work on Fallout forever and ever and ever, and never be outsourced to a company like Obsidian, like it was the case with Fallout New Vegas? And someone in that past video suggested that because Bethesda is salty about the fact that Obsidian made a better game than it did in the form of Fallout 3 and obviously Fallout 4, which I don't think is true. I think that was just a joke of a comment, but even if that person was being serious, I mean, why would Bethesda care that Obsidian makes a great game for them? It's just going to mean more money for them. I mean, really, let's be honest here. If Bethesda got Obsidian on board to make another Fallout game, and we know they're a great developer and they've done a bunch of great games recently, and they create another great Fallout game, Bethesda's just going to make a lot of money. I mean, that's the reality. So there must be another reason there. There must be another reason as to why Bethesda is not likely, nor is probably ever going to give Fallout to another third-party developer like Obsidian. First, I would like to get your thoughts about this question in the comments below. What do you think? Why do you think Bethesda is making this decision, or at least seemingly make this decision? Because we've never heard them confirm this or say this officially or anything like that. It's largely Chris Avallone's speculation at this stage, but I think it's pretty safe to say that this is going to actually be the case, and I'll explain why in a second. So as the foundation for this video, I want to take you down a trip through memory lane where we look at all of the games that Bethesda Softworks has published / developed, because they were a developer at one stage, since 2005, right? We're picking this date because I want to look at the games that Bethesda has published / developed from 2005 to May of 2011, and then from October of 2011 to the present day. And the reason why I'm making that decision is because each of those time periods is about 6 years long, and also as well, the games that Bethesda published and developed within each of those time periods is about the same. In the older time period, it's about 22 games, and in the newer time period, it's about 21 games. So it's a good kind of comparison point, and it's really going to help me drive the point home. So, from 2005 up until May of 2011, according to Wikipedia, Bethesda Softworks published and developed about 22 games in that period. And those games range from Call of Cthulhu to Star Trek Legacy to Fallout 3, of course, to Rogue Warrior to Doom 2. There's a bunch of different games out there. If you want to check out the list, I'll link the Wikipedia article in the description below. But the key thing that I just want to point out here is that of the 22 games developed in that period, 16 of those games were developed by third-party developers, yeah? So you got companies like 4J Studios and 7 Studios and Quicksilver Software and Mad Dog Software and Awesome Play. These companies that are not within Bethesda's family, as in they're not subsidiaries of ZeniMax Media. Bethesda published in that period 16 games that were not developed by their in-house companies, like a Bethesda Game Studios, for instance. And within that period, only 6 games were developed by in-house developers within Bethesda. So for example, Bethesda Softworks, when they actually developed games, and then Bethesda Game Studios, and also id Software, right? You got games like Doom Skyrim 2 with id Software, you got Fallout 3 with Bethesda Game Studios, so those are the kinds of games we're talking about there. But what about from October 2011 to the present day? In that period, Bethesda has published 21 games in total. So it's a very similar number to 22. You can see why I've picked these time periods. And in that time, we've seen games like Rage, we've seen games like Skyrim, Dishonored, Doom, Wolfenstein, The Evil Within, Fallout 4, Elder Scrolls Online, etc., etc. The list goes on, right? And in that period, compared to the 16 games in the former period, Bethesda published only one game that was developed by a third-party company, and that was Direwolf Digital with Elder Scrolls Legends. So in that period, they only ever licensed one of their game franchises to a third-party developer once, and that's it. There are some small exceptions with third parties helping out with the development of a bigger game, but in terms of the predominant primary development studios working on their games from October of 2011 to the present day, only one of those primary developers was a third party. In terms of in-house developers, in that period, they were responsible for developing 20 of Bethesda's 21 games. So take a second to think about that, right? 2005 to 2011, you have 6 games developed by in-house developers and 16 games developed by third-party developers, one of which includes Obsidian with Fallout New Vegas, yeah? And then from October 2011 to the present day, 20 of their games were developed by in-house developers, whereas only one was developed by a third-party developer. Do you see the clear distinction here? There is a point, and roughly it's about from October 2011, where Bethesda/ZeniMax said, we are going to stop outsourcing our games to third-party developers and only use in-house developers. And really, it's not up for argument here. Look at those numbers there, and tell me I'm wrong. In recent times, Bethesda and ZeniMax has gone on a hard acquisition spree. They acquired id Software in 2009, Arcane Studios in 2010, Tango Gameworks in 2010, Machine Games in 2010, Battlecry Studios in 2012, and Escalation Studios in 2017. Look at how many in-house developers they have now because of all those acquisitions. And also bear in mind ZeniMax Online Studios and Bethesda Game Studios in Montreal too. Those are 2 studios that they actually opened themselves. If you just look at all those developers, they are really the only ones creating Bethesda published games nowadays. And they're all, aside from that one exception, they are all in-house studios. But back in the time where Bethesda allowed Obsidian to create Fallout New Vegas, they were publishing games developed by third-party developers left, right, and center. 16 out of 22 games in that period were third-party developed. So in that time, it made sense that Bethesda was okay with Obsidian creating Fallout New Vegas. But something changed from October of 2011, where Bethesda and ZeniMax is like, you know what? We don't want to outsource anymore. Whenever we have a game published through Bethesda Softworks, we for the most part only want that game to be developed by an in-house developer. And that, I strongly believe, is the reason why we will never see Fallout ever go beyond Bethesda again, let alone to Obsidian, right? I mean, bear in mind all those things Chris Avallone said about Obsidian's management and all that kind of stuff. You can find it on the internet. I'm not going to summarize it here. But just generally, look at Bethesda's practices from October of 2011 in terms of who develops their games and which studios they've acquired. It's very clear that at that point they made a conscious decision to not outsource their games to third-party developers. And again, that is the reason why I think Obsidian is very, very likely never working on Fallout again. Not because Bethesda is salty that they made a better game than them or anything like that. For some reason, whether it's in terms of revenue, profitability, maintaining the quality of their games, Bethesda made that decision to only have their games developed by in-house developers. And by the way, I'm not saying whether I agree or disagree with that decision. I'm just telling you the facts as far as I see them. So if we do get another Fallout game before Fallout 5 that's developed by Bethesda Game Studios, it's probably going to be from one of Bethesda's subsidiaries. So Arcane, Battlecry, Escalation Studios, id Software, Machine Games, Tango Gameworks, ZeniMax Online Studios, Bethesda Game Studios Montreal. One of those studios, right, and I'm going to assume it's BGS Montreal, is probably going to work on the next Fallout game. That's if we get one before Fallout 5, yeah? And I believe it all dates back to that reason I gave to you before. Something happened with Bethesda and ZeniMax's management at that stage where they made this decision to never really outsource their games ever. So while there could be other reasons why Obsidian itself as a company, due to management reasons, etc., may never work on another Fallout game again, I think this is the bigger reason here, because it's happening with all of their games franchises, not just Fallout. So anyways, Wastelanders, let me know what you think about this topic in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinions. And until next time, this has been Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourself. And would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.